As we all know, there are several stages to the helping process, such as engagement, assessment, goal formulation, intervention planning, intervention implementation, evaluation, and the termination phase. Sarah and I are actually going to be working on goal formulation, and the client issue that we are going to be using is domestic violence.
I will be playing Ellie. Ellie is a 24-year-old. She's married. She's married to a cop, and she has experienced domestic violence within this relationship. No one knows of all the issues that she is facing. She's very scared to tell family or anyone. One of the reasons being that her husband is so controlling and he has a lot of power because he is a cop. So the primary purpose of this session with Ellie is going to be to get her to establish some goals that she wants to accomplish out of therapy.
Hi, Ellie. Come on in.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. You enjoying the weather?
Yeah.
Sunshine usually makes me feel good. I don't know about you, but okay. So I know last week we did the assessment, and you made the decision to continue to do therapy and come back. So that's great. That's really great news. We kind of went through what you're going through right now and what you feel like your needs are and all that good stuff. How are you feeling this week? How are things going for you this week?
Well, it wasn't a very good week.
Okay. What made it a not good week?
He became really mad one night, and he got really violent, and it just seems like he's so mad all the time now. And I'm scared because of that, and I'm scared because he's going to find out that I'm coming here.
Okay. Do you live in constant fear?
Most of the time.
Okay. Was there any particular incident that occurred this week that made you feel a little more scared than usual?
Well, he got really violent one night.
Okay. What did he do?
Well, my cousin called. He lives in Atlanta. And my other cousin's like really sick. And my cousin's a male, and Sean, my husband, didn't believe me that it was my cousin. And he got really, really mad, thinking a guy was calling me.
Okay.
And he was just calling to tell me that one of my family members were ill, but Sean grabbed the phone.
Okay. Well, I'm so sorry that happened. Well, what we like to do in therapy is we like to lay down some goals. But we want them to be goals that you're ready for, that you're comfortable with. So I would like to help you make some goals for yourself. I know during the assessment you were kind of battling staying or leaving, and hopefully the goals that you come up with will help you ultimately make that decision. So if you don't mind, would you like to make some goals? And
Yeah, I think that's okay.
okay. Okay, so in your opinion and in your situation, what would you feel to be the number one goal for you right now?
I just don't want to be scared all the time and depressed and anxious, and I've never been this way before, and I just want to be happy again.
Okay. What do you feel you can do to reach that goal?
I know I need my support systems back. I don't talk to my family anymore. I don't have any more friends. And I found a lot in church. And I found a lot of happiness in them.
Okay.
So I know if I try to get them back, then that will help.
Okay. Well, those sound like excellent goals. One goal I feel like is of main concern right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is your safety. Is this something you've thought about
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and list that as your priority, your number one goal in your treatment plan, so we can work towards that. And these other goals that you come up with are perfect, and obviously we don't want to put those aside. And they will fall into place once we start making objectives for that number one goal of safety. Okay. Did you have a chance to look at the resources you were given during the assessment?
Yeah, I looked at some. I'm not ready to talk to anyone else yet, though. But I would like to make that one of my goals.
Okay.
To feel comfortable enough to let other people know about kind of what's going on.
Okay.
But I'm just scared that he'll find out.
Right.
So I want to take advantage of some of the ones that you told me about that were like anonymous and confidential, and I think that might be a good place to start.
Okay. So what would being comfortable, what does that mean to you?
Like being comfortable with telling people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be scared. Like, I want to know that the resources will help me instead of hurt me.
Okay.
I don't know the resources very well yet. And with him being a cop, I'm so afraid that he's going to find out. And I want to be able to tell someone and allow it to help and not create more problems if he finds out for my safety and stuff.
Okay. Another angle we kind of like to look at in therapy is making our goals specific. So maintaining our safety was what we agreed that we feel is probably the best goal to have as number one. So to make that specific, what do you think we could put down as the goal? How are we going to maintain your safety?
I could put some of those numbers that you gave me into my phone. Like you said, maybe put them underneath a false contact or something. And they would be more available to me instead of right now you told me to hide them someplace that he wouldn't find them. And so right now they're hidden in my car and they're not very accessible. So.
Right. Okay, excellent. So how about we start with that goal for now, and we'll continue with the other goals that you came up with as therapy progresses. So that would be maintaining your safety by putting those phone numbers in your phone, just in case you get to a point where you're ready and you feel like you need to call a resource that you can. Okay? Okay. Well, we will pick up next week. We'll continue with the goal formulation. It's not something that happens overnight. Something that's constantly moving along in therapy, and as we reach one goal, we'll move on to the next, or we'll work on them simultaneously, whatever it is that we need to do for you. Okay. And obviously we want you to be as involved as possible in this process. So if you come up with something, an idea, definitely present that and let me know, okay? Alright, well I will see you next week, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
During this session with Ellie, our purpose was to get her to be active in setting her own goals. We wanted to make them attainable, specific, and we wanted her to be largely involved in her own goals. The reason and rationale that we did this is because goals need to be realistic in order for the client to be able to attain them. If not, and we make them unrealistic, we're setting the client up for failure.
And also, having them actively involved in that goal formulation is going to motivate them even more to accomplish that goal, because it's something that they came up with themselves. And we used several skills during the evaluation or the goal formulation with Ellie, and one of those things were open-ended questions. And the reason why we used those was to kind of get some more information from her that, we may have forgotten to ask about, but she openly, will tell us. And usually this will make the client feel much more comfortable because they're on their terms, and then they're not drilled question after question after question.
Another skill that we used was to prioritize goals. As you recall, Leanna, she played the therapist, kind of helped Ellie prioritize the goals. She made Ellie aware that her safety was definitely the biggest priority. We definitely don't want to pressure the client into prioritizing, but there are certain things that definitely need to be number one, and her safety in her life is one of those things. So Leanna kind of eased her into realizing that on her own.
Right. And another skill that we used was clarification. Sometimes the clients will tell us something that might sound clear to them, but it didn't sound clear to the therapist. So we always want to be sure that we fully understand what they're saying. And with Ellie, one of the situations with her husband being aggressive, like having her expand on that and clarify what she actually meant by that, and being at a comfortable place. What does that mean for Ellie? It's really easy to assume, so having that clarification kind of gets rid of those assumptions.
Another skill that we used was to kind of frame everything from the strengths perspective. An example of this is by the goal of maintaining safety. That could have easily been said in a negative way, you know. Well, the most important thing for you is to make sure that your husband doesn't abuse you anymore. But we try to frame it from the strengths perspective and say, how can we improve your safety, not how do we eliminate your husband from beating you. So just trying to get that strengths perspective all throughout the session is an important skill to have.
Right. And I think another example of that was, she did come up with her own goals, but that obviously that maintaining of safety was the number one, but not to disregard and to place some strengths on the goals she did come up with. And the last skill that we used was having the client actively involved and letting her know that she had control over, her life and the goals that she chose, and that they weren't just given to her.
In this session, we are going to be using the evaluation stage of the helping process. The client issue at hand is Emily, a therapist that will be played by Leanna, is actually in therapy herself. She needs some help with stress management and self-care.
The purpose of this session is to evaluate the interventions that were given to her from previous therapy sessions. She was asked to make a self-care plan, so we're going to evaluate how she's doing with that. Emily, like Sarah said, is a new therapist. She's married. She overall lives a pretty comfortable life. Doesn't have any marital issues or anything like that. But she's feeling a lot of pressure from work to meet expectations at work and to meet her clients' goals as well as her own. So.
Emily, you ready?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, I guess.
Overall, how has this week been?
It's been pretty stressful.
Okay. Have you found that the self-care plan or anything that we've been working on brought you any comfort, any help?
A little bit. Having some issues with my time. I took on an extra case, and come to find out it's a really difficult case, and it's just tearing on me a little bit. I have referred back to the self-care plan several times through the week. I haven't implemented everything that I should have, probably.
Well, like we talked about in the beginning, nothing's 100%. So you can have setbacks. The important thing is that you keep going. You keep referring to that self-care plan. When you fall off the wagon, you get back on. So we're humans and we fall off sometimes and we're really busy. The important thing is that you just keep on with the process and you keep on referring back to that self-care plan. Anything in particular that you were struggling with that you want to share with me, or? I know you said the case. I didn't know if there was anything else.
It's taking up a lot more time than I anticipated. So I don't have the time I had. I thought I was gonna have to myself when I made the self-care plan. I'm not able to go out to eat with my husband a couple times a week like I had planned. I'm not able to take the time to read the book I wanted to read. And I'm really bad about that, putting work and other things and people before my own.
That's kind of us as therapists. We struggle with that sometimes. So the important thing to remember too about goals is that they are fluid. We can always change them. You know, never is it that we make one goal and that's it's always fluid. You have to change it a little bit, make it more specific, make it more broad. So if we find that we need to go back and do that, the helping process, as you know, it doesn't go A, B, C, sometimes A, B, C, back to A, so it's okay if we need to go back to some of those goals and look at, what are they working? Is this an attainable goal? So when he said, you don't have time to go out with your husband 3 times a week, maybe we change it back to 2 or 1 or... so that's okay, but where we're at now is kind of trying to evaluate and see if those interventions that we talked about in the self-care plan are working. Do you remember that survey that we did in the beginning? It kind of measured your stress levels and like you talked about time management, how you felt like you were doing. So one of the ways that we can kind of quantitatively measure is by doing a survey. Do you feel like you'd be okay taking that again?
Sure.
Okay. So there's that.
You want me to go ahead and take it now, or
yeah,
until I get?
And what I will do is I will score this for you, and we'll talk about that next time.
Okay.
So let's kind of get into your self-care plan and your intervention, and then talk about whether that worked or not. So looking back at kind of your self-care plan, it says that you planned on managing some of your stress. We talked about some things that you like to do to manage your stress. You mentioned bubble baths. Have you been able to take a bubble bath every other night like you planned?
Not every other night. I only took 2 this week so far. I've just been so tired, and I know that if I take the bubble bath, it will probably help me sleep better. I know it's better for me to do it, but I just get so tired at the end of the day. It's hard to make myself do it. It almost feels like it's added pressure in a way that self-care plan does. So I don't know if it's counterproductive. Maybe we need to come up with a different intervention, or maybe I'm just doing it wrong.
Okay, well, I think that the absolute opposite of what we want the self-care plan to do is to add more stress. So maybe with you, we need a little less rigid self-care plan. Sometimes I know you, using your own words, you kind of told me that you are very anal and you like to do everything on time. If it says you need to do this, you do it right then. So maybe putting that rigid of a self-care plan on you added more stress. So maybe what we need to do is kind of go back to the goals and intervention and create kind of a more fluid and a more relaxed self-care plan. Does that sound like something you wanted to do? So I know we said that with a self-care plan. We've been doing some stress management techniques, some breathing and stuff like that. Have you been able to use those exercises?
I actually have. That's one of the interventions I've used quite a lot this week, especially with getting the new case, and we're having some transitions at work too, and just being able to close my office door and take some deep breaths and just take a moment to myself really has made a huge impact on my stress levels.
So that sounds like something that's working for you.
Yes.
Good. What about listening to the classical music and the calming music? How have you felt with that?
This is gonna sound so silly, but I tried to do it in my car, and I found myself actually getting tired. So, you know how that is. I can't get tired, I gotta keep my energies up. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to implement the music maybe at night, or maybe, something like that. But during the workday, that definitely wasn't good.
Good. Well, that's good to know. So we evaluated that, and you think that it works, but we need to make it a different time or something. That's good. What about some of the tools that we gave you, the stress balls and all that? How's that working?
The little thing that we use with the water in it, that's really helped. Especially when I'm on the phone at work, just having that in my hand while I'm on the phone and keeps me relaxed and calm and collected, especially with the amount of stress that that phone call can bring.
Yes. So, is there anything else about, now that we're in the stage of kind of evaluating if what we're doing is working, is there anything else that you want to add?
I guess I need to find out where I can fit more time in for myself. And that might be, as a social worker, I know, don't take more than you can handle type thing. So maybe just probably learning to tell my supervisor no, that I can't do it, I've got too much on my plate. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for me.
So that, like, professional assertiveness.
Yeah, and it might take me a while to get to that point.
And also, we kind of mentioned beforehand that maybe at home you kind of have a lot of responsibilities. You have a lot of at work, and then once you get home, you still gotta, clean the house, cook dinner, do laundry, all that kind of thing. So maybe taking some of those responsibilities off at home would help lighten your load for work. Have you ever thought about maybe adding that in and talking to your husband about that?
I haven't. That's a good idea. Probably should add that in.
Okay. So, starting next week, I'll kind of get these scores ready for you. We'll kind of quantitatively look at how the interventions have been helping you. I have written down kind of what you felt like helped, what didn't. We'll meet back next week. We'll talk about the goals that we have achieved and if we want to make any new ones, or if we want to change up some goals or the interventions, and that's okay, because it's not it's not A, B, C, and we'll just kind of make some new goals and then evaluate those and make sure those work.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay, I will see you next week.
All right, thank you.
The goal of the session with Emily was to see if the interventions that we implemented were working or not. It was the evaluation process. Many skills are used during this evaluation process. One of the largest is a strengths perspective. As a therapist, I made sure that I framed things in a strengths perspective way. I often ask Emily what is working. I brought her back to the bigger picture. I mentioned if she falls off the wagon, getting back on. I was interested in what didn't work, but largely, what did work, we need to focus on that.
Many open-ended questions were asked to Emily. Again, as mentioned previously, this gives the client opportunity to talk on their own terms, to offer extra information, and to even offer her own recommendations and kind of how she feels. And then we also used client involvement, and this was whenever the therapist was asking Emily about the goals and maybe interventions that she would like to add to her treatment plan, or however you would want to phrase that. And also she asked her to clarify certain goals that she had mentioned.
Another skill that's used is in the evaluation process is qualitative measurements. I know we didn't really go into the survey, but what a lot of agencies use in therapists is surveys as a way to measure a baseline during the assessment and then after intervention to see if what they're doing brought down stress levels or depression or whatever they're targeting, and we kind of tried to depict that instrument with Emily.